introduce Lauren Parmelee, who is Senior Director of Education for the Audubon Society of Rhode Island. Lauren has dedicated many years to advancing science education, gaining experience at various museums, nature centers, and research facilities across the country. But she relocated to Rhode Island in 2002, and since then she's actively participated in the Rhode Island Environmental Education Association, which is a collaborative organization committed to promoting environmental literacy for everybody. Lauren is an accomplished birder who leads walks with charm and grace and a lot of fun throughout the region, and regularly conducts a highly sought-after beginning birding class for Audubon members. Last week, BGC members had the opportunity to tour the Audubon Society of Rhode Island site in Bristol, led by Lauren, where we participated in just a wonderful bird walk on a beautiful day, focused on the avifauna of Rhode Island and their migration patterns. So, Lauren oversees one of Rhode Island's largest education programs, providing innovative and engaging programming to people of all ages. As I think a lot of you know, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island is an independent, not-for-profit environmental organization dedicated to statewide environmental education and advocacy. It was established in 1897, and it's the oldest environmental organization in the state. Its mission is to protect birds, other wildlife, and their habitats through conservation, education, and advocacy for the benefit of all of us. So Audubon is one of the largest environmental educators in Rhode Island, and it reaches over 20,000 students every year. Since acquiring its first wildlife refuge in 1924, Audubon Society of Rhode Island has grown to become one of the largest private landholders in Rhode Island, and now protects nearly 10,000 acres of wildlife habitat here. So I think Lauren is our Caped Crusader of the month, and we really appreciate it, so let's give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
About now. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I am thrilled to be the special guest at the Barrington Land Trust. I have not been here to speak to this organization since the winter of 2020. And so I'm very, very happy that we're in a new time, a new era. But I'm always very thrilled to be invited to talk about birds, whether I know it 6 months ahead of time or 24 hours ahead of time. It doesn't matter. I can talk about birds all day long. What I thought I'd do today is talk about birds. Whoops, that's not the right one. There we go. Talk about the local birds through the seasons. So we'll start with the birds you're seeing in your yard during the fall and winter, and then we'll move into spring. And then we'll talk about landscaping in your yard, what you can do to promote insect life and bird life. And then at the end, I will leave time for questions. So feel free to tell me a story about birds in your backyard or ask a question. Okay, so some of you are probably quite familiar with the birds in your backyard. But if you're not so familiar with the birds in your backyard, this is a really good time to start looking and listening and learning, because in the winter, there's not so many. So it's not, if you try to start in May, it's the most overwhelming. There's birds everywhere, and there's all different colors, and there's all different noises. But if you start in winter, you sort of build your way up. And the nice thing is that the chickadees, the black-capped chickadees that we have, will help you, because in the winter, little birds like to flock together. So if you hear that chickadee-dee-dee-dee in your backyard, you should go out and take a look And you'll probably see other small birds with the chickadees, like its cousin, the tufted titmouse. The tufted titmouse, gray, he has a crest. Not a lot of birds have a crest. So you can narrow down what birds are. If they have a crest, there's only like 4 or 5 of them. So the chickadees and the tufted titmice love to come to bird feeders, and they love to come to flower heads that you've let stand and go to seed, and they will bring along their friends. So if you're in the backyard and you have a big tree, you might have some of the upside down birds, right? The most common upside down bird is the white-breasted nuthatch. He's got the black cap like the chickadee, but he doesn't have that black throat like a chickadee. And he says, ank, 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 ank. This year, if you have big pines, you might also see the red-breasted nuthatch. A lot of these birds that live up in the northern conifer forests, if it's not going to be a good seed season for them, they move south. And so the Canadians have told us that we're going to see a lot of red-breasted nuthatches this winter, just because of the seed crop up north. And so these are adorable, a little bit smaller than the white-breasted, and a little bit higher, like quack, 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 high-pitched little things. And they both like to go down the tree. They have very short legs, and they go down the tree. And all the time they're looking in the cracks in the bark for insects, or they'll go to your bird feeder and such. And they're really adorable, and they're often found with the chickadees and titmice. If you're really lucky, and this happens in winter, is we'll get brown creepers. And brown creepers go up the tree. So brown creepers will fly into the base of the tree, and then they kind of circle around and going up, doing the same thing, looking for things. You never know. You might come across a spider eggs under the bark, or you might come across a little insect, or you might find some seeds. So the brown creeper, which is beautiful brown and blends in with the tree, very well camouflaged, he goes up, nuthatches go down. Now, many of you may know the American goldfinch. It's such a stunning bird. It is not gold. I don't know why they called it a goldfinch, but it is very, very yellow, lemony yellow. And in the summer, the male has that beautiful yellow color with the black cap and the black wings, and really stands out. They like your Niger thistle. They love it when the thistles bloom, because they collect that the seed heads for their nest. They line their nest with the fuzziness. In the winter, you might still have your goldfinches, but they might not look the same because they molt and they get much more camouflaged. So the males look a lot like the females. So don't think they're not there. They might be there. They're just not looking the same. They're not popping out, which is probably good because, you know, that bright yellow is very attractive for the local hawk. And there's no leaves on the tree to blend in with. So keep your eye out for your goldfinches. And of course, you'll probably hear your Carolina wren. Tea kettle, Judy, Judy, Judy. The Carolina wren is so loud and so clear. And this bird is, a lot of birds are expanding their range northward as the world warms. And the Carolina wren really has expanded its range northward into, I think they actually had one in southern Maine. So you may hear them if you go on vacation in other places, but they don't eat seed. So they eat insects or spiders or spider eggs all winter long. So all winter long, they're defending their food territory. So you'll hear them sing, cheeseburger, 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 all winter long. And I didn't realize that at first. I'm like, why are they singing? It is February. But it's because they're defending their little space from other Carolina wrens. Males and females look pretty much alike, and that dark, that white eyebrow is very distinctive. And then the wren tail. Wren tails, neither one of these pictures does it justice, but a lot of times it sticks up. And then at your feeder, you'll have the most beautiful bird in the world, northern cardinals. You can't forget that. We see them all the time. You can't forget how beautiful they are. The males being the bright red with the black face. But I think the females are just as beautiful with the subtle browns and red tinges and bright red beak. So watch for them at your feeder. And then the feeder hogs, these are house finches. House finches, I used to think it was house sparrows that were the most aggressive at the feeders, but it turns out it's the house finch. And they've found my backyard, and they're all over the feeders. So the male the males can look, they can really vary in how much rosiness. Sometimes they even look orange. And then the female just very striped, very well camouflaged. And notice that the cardinals and the house finch both have that really triangular shaped beak. That's your seed cracking beak. That's what they do. They crack open those seeds with their beak and their tongue. They manage to get those little sunflower seeds out of the shell. I could not do it with my mouth. I don't know. But so these are the males and females that look very different, whereas the Carolinas will look very similar. Who else is going to be here? Oh, and then it's the season of the sparrows. I think I said this on our walk. Don't start birding by looking at sparrows. Just call them, oh, I saw a sparrow, or I saw a little brown job. It was striped. That's good enough. The song sparrow on the right, he's here all year long. They have a beautiful song. They're the most common sparrow in probably New England. They have that nice dark central spot. They're flocking up now. They're not defending their territory anymore. They're flocking up and feeding on the seed in your garden. If you leave those flower heads, they will come. And then down from the north comes the white-throated sparrow. He will spend his winter, him and her will spend their winters with you. They love to scratch around in the shrubbery. The white-throat comes in two color phases. You can see the one on the bottom, very white stripes, very, very white. Bright yellow lores, those are called, right at the top of the beak. And then a tan phase, which is above them, tan stripes. So a little bit duller. They interbreed, and they're both common. So keep your eyes open for that. Sometimes on a warm day, the other day, Friday was beautiful, but then Saturday morning was also beautiful, and I went out, and they have this beautiful song. It's very high-pitched, it's very lovely, and because it was warm, they were just doing little bits of it, little parts of it. Same with the song sparrow. It's like they're like acknowledging the sun with a little spring song. So listen for that on a warm winter day when you're like, is it ever going to be spring? Go out on that warm winter day and you'll hear them practicing, and it makes you smile. And then our junco, dark-eyed junco, have this nice, neat picture of him with, this is a sparrow. Notice the triangular beak, beautiful gray coloring and white belly. And then the picture below I have, because my grandmother always called them snowbirds. So I had to have one in the snow. And they're like the white-throated sparrow, they're just coming back. So if you don't have them yet, don't worry, they're coming. They come from the north, the forests in Canada, and on top of the mountains in New Hampshire and Vermont. And so they're coming and they'll be under your feeder. In the summer, are hopping around your yard. You may or may not have ever noticed these teeny tiny sparrows. They're really cute. They have a rusty cap and a clear white breast, and they chip a lot. Chip, chip, chip. Is the chipping sparrow. And at this time of year, the chipping sparrow's going south, and his cousin, the tree sparrow's, coming in. So you may have under your feeder another really adorable little sparrow. He usually has a spot in the middle of his chest. So the chipping sparrow is all white, and the tree sparrow has a little spot. Really small. These are all going to be, sparrows like to be on the ground for the most part. They're not the ones hogging the food at the feeder like the house finch. Even though that house finch female looks very sparrow-like with all the stripes and everything. These guys like to scratch around on the ground, under your shrubberies, in the woods. A lot of times I'll just be walking along and I'll hear all this scratching, scratch, scratch. Very busy, very busy. And that's usually some of the sparrows. And then we have our house sparrows too. If you are interested in knowing your birds, it's good to know the house sparrow. He is not related to our sparrows. They're originally from Europe. They're a little bit bigger and chunkier, and he has some nice chestnut coloring on his face and a black bib, and she is dull as dishwater. I got nothing to hang, no special markings on her except that, right? That she really has no stripes, and they do also have that triangular beak that's used for cracking seeds. And you find them a lot. If you have privet hedges, house sparrows came from England, privet came from England. They apparently evolved together because every privet hedge in Newport, where I live, has house sparrows. They just love that. And then, of course, our mourning doves. And this is the owl of the daytime, right? It goes coo, 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 coo. And lovely in their own way. Always, it's the bird that flies up in front of the car. Like, lots of feathers. They have this habit of, let's say a predator is coming after them, and I'll talk a little bit about that. They'll blow out their feathers. They kind of like let them go. So you can have this whole pile of feathers floating through the air because the mourning dove got scared. Sit on the wire a lot. And I'm always trying to turn them into something else because they have pointy wings, and I'm like, falcon, falcon. This is such a great group of birds. Just love these birds. They can you bang your head against a block of wood all day long? No. These are very special birds. In fact, they have been studied by people who design football helmets and other helmets because of their ability to bang their head against the tree all day long. And it has to do with their very long tongues sort of wrap around inside the skull and help provide some support. I'm sure there's other engineering terms to describe all this. But yeah, they are, they over time have evolved to protect those little brains from their feeding strategy. So on the left, we have the downy woodpecker. That's the little woodpecker. If you have chickadees and titmice around your yard, you often have a downy woodpecker. They're part of that pack, that winter pack. There's also a larger hairy woodpecker. I just say look at a lot of downies, and the day you see a hairy, you'll know, because it's bigger and it just has a bigger beak and a bigger body. But the downy is the most common. And then the middle one is the red-bellied woodpecker, and we talked about this the other day. Don't look for the red belly. It's a dumb name. They named it based on having probably a breeding male in the hand. And in high breeding plumage, he has like a rosy belly. But a lot of these birds were named from study skins from dead birds, essentially. So they already had a red-bellied woodpecker, a red-headed woodpecker, so they called it a red-bellied woodpecker. It's a dumb name. This is another bird that has expanded its range north. So when we were young, there were no red-bellied woodpeckers in New England. And now they've expanded their range, and because it's, partially because it's warmer, partially because there's the right habitat, partially because they don't mind living around people, they're expanding their range northward and become quite common. And then a bird on the right, the northern flicker, he's got that red patch on the back of his head, but he doesn't have any black and white. Most woodpeckers are black and white. He's got this sort of, tan, greenish, and lots of spots going on. You can tell it's a male, has a mustache. And he has, I should have included a picture, when he flies, his feather shafts are yellow. So if you're in California, they're red. If you're here, they're yellow. And if you're somewhere in the Midwest, there's what's called an intergrade, and it's almost peach. It's really, really pretty. And you see that. If they fly over you, you see those beautiful yellow shafts. They also have a white rump patch right here, and they like to feed on the ground. They love ants. It's spicy. Ants are spicy. They're full of formic acid, and you taste them, and it's like, oh, that's like eating Mexican food. So they like to eat on the ground, and so sometimes you'll see your robins in the yard feeding and eating worms, and the robins, start to fly up, and you'll get this bigger bird or two flying up with them, and you'll see that white rump patch right there, and you're like, oh, flicker. As I said, all these birds have a super long tongue, so they can get their tongue into the holes that they create and lap up their food. Now, I do get a lot of calls that there's a woodpecker banging on my house. In the spring, they like to make a lot of noise, just like birds like to sing, right? The robin sings, the Carolina wren sings. They make a lot of noise. These guys tap as they're sort of breeding. Aren't I good at making a lot of noise? So on your house, if your house is very resonant or there's a hollow tree nearby, whatever, metal flashing, whatever makes the most noise, they will tap on that. If they're tapping on your house at other times of the year, if it's a wood house, you might want to have someone come and look at it because they are very good at finding insects. And if you have a woodpecker consistently tapping on your house, you might want to have someone come and check and see what you have in terms of insects in your wood, because that's what they feed on. And then we have our community watch program. Very intelligent birds, the corvid family. The corvid family includes the American crow, the fish crow, which is here in Rhode Island, the common raven, which has expanded his range tremendously into Rhode Island, and the blue jay. And so I love these birds. They are noisy, caw, 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 jay, 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 jay. But they also really, they let you know when other interesting things are around. They'll let you know if you have an owl or a hawk in your neighborhood, or there's a fox around, or coyote, or whatever. They really are the community watch. The blue jay is a very good mimic. He can do a variety of hawks, red-shouldered hawk, Cooper's hawk, red-tailed hawk. So sometimes I think they do it, there's kind of theories about it, right? They could do that in your backyard to tell you there's a hawk there, or they could do it so the other birds fly away because they think there's a hawk there. Yeah. And so the blue jay, as I was telling folks the other day, my blue jay at home does a Cooper's hawk, and it fooled that new app, Merlin. So you have to verify when you use apps. So now, I live in Newport. I don't know in Barrington where they roost, but crows love to roost together in the winter. They love to come into these big trees all together, and they never shut up all night long. And they do this in Newport. They do it in Washington Square, right by the courthouse. And for a long time, the government officials didn't really like it because, birds poop everywhere. So they put up this distress call of a crow. And so the distress call would play, and it was supposed to scare them away. And the distress call would play all night long while these guys are sleeping in the trees nearby because they're very, very smart, and they figured out really early on that the fake owl on top of City Hall was not really an owl, and the distress call was just a microphone. So it's really, they're so enjoyable to come watch flocking in at night. They're commuters. So Quidnick Island, they come from Portsmouth, Middletown. They all come down into Newport to roost together. And that probably happens somewhere in Barrington Warren as well. The blue jays this year, I was reading up on this since our walk. Apparently blue jays will migrate, and I've noticed there's flocks of blue jays migrating south, which I don't know what direction I'm facing, but they're going south. And I read that some years they go south, and some years they don't, and some years they go south, but not all of them do. So you might have blue jays moving south over your house, but your blue jay might stay all winter, especially, if he's head of the feeder crowd. So I thought it was interesting. They don't seem to really understand what the impetus is, because most migration is about food, right? So the red-breasted nuthatches coming down, or if we got any rare finches coming down, it's all because the seed crop isn't doing well. Blue jays have evolved with oak trees. So, it could be these are northern blue jays, and the oaks aren't doing well up there. I don't know. And certainly oak trees, you probably know this, they have years when they have just a huge crop of acorns called mast years, and then they have years where there's not as many acorns. The blue jay evolved with the oak tree, and I learned this from Doug Tallamy, who most of you probably know if you're gardeners, but that the blue jay, its beak, right at the end, it has a little tip at the very end of the beak, is perfect for peeling the bark off acorns, the husk off the acorn. And then when he buries or stashes his acorns, he buries them at exactly the right distance below the surface so that if he forgets where his acorn is, it's the perfect distance for that oak tree to for that acorn to sprout. So they've evolved together, and it's fascinating. Then if you do have birds in your backyard, if you encourage birds, you are encouraging all birds. And you should not feel bad about that because you have to balance things in nature. And the job of the raptors, or birds of prey, is to help control populations. And they do that by preying on other birds. And the most common backyard bird that preys on songbirds is the Cooper's hawk. So on the left, we have a beautiful adult Cooper's hawk. It's like slate gray, bluish gray, banded tail. He always looks mad. He. They always look mad because they have this ridge over their eye that helps, they fly through shrubs, like use their tail and wide wings. And that ridge, orbital ridge, protects them from getting like hit in the eye, but it makes them look like they are angry birds. So this is the adult on the left. The male and female look alike, but the females are bigger. This is a juvenile on the left. That means a first-year bird, and they're just browner. The brown helps camouflage them and protect them. So they come in just like flying in. Now, you do also have other predators, so I thought it'd be fun. And you might not like to go out at night, but you might open your windows on a nice night, or maybe you wake up in the middle of the night and you don't know what to do with yourself. So you could listen for some of the owls. So this is the great horned owl. This is the largest owl that we have breeding in Rhode Island. And it is so big that it can pick up skunks and eat skunks. And because it doesn't have a very good sense of smell, it's able to actually do that. It's the only predator that a skunk really has, except cars. So this is the great horned owls. So owls breed earlier than anybody else. So Audubon does a lot of owl prowls where we go out and we play a tape and we listen for owls, and every now and then you get to see one. Every now and then, no guarantees. But that's because they're going to start talking to each other like now, like end of October, November, December. They're hooting and calling to each other, setting up their territory, getting ready to nest, and then after the new year, they'll lay their eggs and go from there, raise their young. So the owls are the earliest nesters. They don't like to build it. They don't build a nest. Why would they want to do that when they can steal an osprey nest or an eagle nest or some hollow tree or whatever? But it doesn't matter because everybody's afraid of them and they can do whatever they want. This is the only predator, other than cars, of like red-tailed hawks or hawks sleeping in a tree is really the great horned owl. All right, let's do the next one. This is a little more demure. We saw one of these the other day. Some of us saw one. These are screech owls. They're just little guys like this, not very big at all. They come in two colors, red and gray. And they are predators, got those huge owl eyes in the front of their face. They have amazing hearing. That round face of the owl helps focus the sound to their ears. And these screech owls, well, I'll let you decide if it's a screech. More like a whinny. But yeah, the screech owl, and that's a pretty distinct call. I find that they call earlier in the evening than the great horns. I mean, they don't want the great horns coming to find them. So they do their calling and talking and everything earlier in the evening than the great horns. Really very beautiful little owl. And owls fly silently, so it's hard, you don't hear them going by you if they're flying over. You really have to look for them. And then I know we have barred owl because I was with a group of first graders once in Haynes Park, and the first graders were like, owl. in the middle of the day. It was the cutest thing, and everybody got to see it. It was really nice. They're kind of mellow. Like if you do find one during the day, they're just like, hi, I'm sleepy. So this is what a barred owl sounds like. That last one, I always forget that. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? So you have all three of these species living in Barrington and Warren and Bristol, and they really help. Most of these, they eat a lot of rodents. So if you're concerned about rodents, these are your top predators on rodents, as well as daytime hunters like red-tailed hawks, red-shouldered hawks. And of course, coyotes eat a lot of rodents too. This is the baby barred on the right. Okay, so let's pretend we made it all the way to the March. Let's pretend it's March. All those robins that have been floating around your neighborhood in flocks all winter long, eating your berries, your winter berries, your chokecherry, whatever berry is there, the robins will eat. They're traveling around in big flocks because they flock up in the winter. They might not look as bright as your spring robin does, but then they come back, the ground thaws, and we transition from one diet, berries, to insects and worms. And that's what a lot of animals that can stay here in the winter have to be able to vary their diet, right? So a chickadee can eat lots of different kinds of seeds, but I've also seen chickadees eating berries and probably picking up little insects as well if they find them on a warm day. So we're transitioning from winter food, which hopefully hasn't run out, to spring food. And then you're going to get those really early arrivals. Now, we all discussed this the other day, and I don't have a sign on it, but we've been seeing red-winged blackbirds still. So I think ours went south, but there's still red wings coming in from the north or moving around. They just tend to flock up with the grackles down here, that bottom one with the long tail. Those are both blackbirds. And they tend to move around in the winter. And so don't be surprised if you have them at your feeder in the winter because sometimes they go south and sometimes they don't. It's kind of like the robins. Robins move around, but they always want to be the first one back to your yard. Your robin wants to be first. So they only go as far as they have to. But birds that really do migrate, they start to come back at the end of February, beginning of March, mid-March, and some of those include those little chipping sparrows that I mentioned, that they're going south now, and the tree sparrows are coming in. The eastern phoebe, this bird, I've seen a couple of them this week because it's been warm, so the insects are still flying. This is a little bird, it's a flycatcher, so it has to eat insects, that really likes to nest around people. They build a nest. Sometimes they'll nest right on like a windowsill or something like that. And they wag their tail. So they have no real, they're kind of block-headed brown. They wag their tail. That's their distinctive mark. And a catbird, of course, our meow, kitty bird. Some will stay all winter, hiding in the shrubberies in the multiflora rows, eating berries. But most of them go south, but they come back as soon as they possibly can. And then in April, we're always very happy when our tree swallows come back. Beautiful insectivores that nest in bird houses. I'm sure you have many. It's just sort of like, spring. I get all excited about these birds. It's like my first catbird, I'm so excited. And then there's another, and then there's 10 more, and then there's 100 more. But that first one is always like, it's spring. And then we get May. We're in May, and it's warm, and the birds from the south, from Central America and South America are coming back, and it just makes us all birders get giddy. We get crazy, giddy, crazy. Because we're just so excited to see these beautiful, these are all males. The males tend to be brighter, and females are much more practical and more camouflaged in their plumage. But you might see at your feeder, you might have a rose-breasted grosbeak because they've got that big seed-cracking beak, and they they know, okay, feeders, that's a good source of food. So they're going to feed their babies insects, but they themselves are happy to stuff themselves with seed. You're going to get some warblers, the American redstart being one of them. These are primarily insect eaters. They have to eat bugs. They feed their babies bugs, and that's why they have to go so far for the winter. The indigo bunting, a beautiful blue bird seen at the edges of fields in the woods, but at the edges singing away. Scarlet tanager, another just gorgeous bird. And of course our Baltimore oriole, who will come, not only come to your fruit trees, he will come to hummingbird feeders. The hummers taught the orioles, who taught the downy woodpeckers, who taught the catbirds. And so you will get many things at either a hummingbird feeder, or they will sell you oriole feeders as well, or a half of orange or grape jelly. There's like a whole selection of diet that these birds will accept from you. And then we get into baby season, and the babies need a lot of food. There's a lot of food going down the gullet of baby birds. There's a lot of begging going on, as you can see. And this is where the caterpillars and the insects are so important. So important. So even if, pretty much the goldfinch feeds mostly seed to its young, but the rest of them are putting the protein to grow them big and fat and healthy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about habitats and what you can do in your yard to encourage bird life. Birds occupy many habitats. Some are very specific habitats. So there's a salt marsh sparrow that lives on Jacob's Point is a good example. It can only live in salt marshes. It cannot live in your backyard, right? So that's why right now it's pretty endangered, because the sea level is rising and it interferes with their nesting. So that's a very specific bird. Other birds eat fish. They need to be near habitats that are wet, and so like the green heron at the bottom, it can be freshwater, it could be saltwater, it could be a salt marsh. He's pretty flexible around, the type of wetland, but it has to be a wetland. Chimney swifts are insectivores. That's the cigar with wings in the middle there. Chimney swifts, like the swallows, eat insects, and the insect numbers are such in decline that they're in decline. American kestrel, there was a pair nesting in Providence in a junkyard once, but for the most part they need a field. And then of course there's pigeon. He can live anywhere. So some are very specific and some are not. The bird in the upper left is a yellow warbler. This is our most common warbler in Rhode Island, and they probably live in your yard if you have some tangle with the catbirds. So you can create your own habitat. You have to think about, what do animals, wildlife need? They need food, they need a source of water, they need shelter, they need a place to lay their eggs, and that might mean with insects a host plant for the caterpillars or the larvae. So you think about a lot of things. I'd like to live in this house. This is like a fairy tale house. But you have to sort of think about, you can create it and they will come. So food, as I said, they really need food, and so encouraging insects is really, really important. And not using pesticides is really, really important. So if you plant for pollinators and other insects, not just pollinators, insects in general, you are helping to feed birds, because that is what they're feeding young. So we know pollinators are in big trouble. I don't have to preach to the choir. And so if you're planting nectar-bearing, nectar and pollen plants that are good for insects, then you're helping birds as well. So plant for the pollinators, for solitary bees, for beetles, for hummingbirds, for flies, and then you'll be helping the birds. Also plant for the seasons. Think through, right? So it's winter, you're thinking about your garden, you're planning out what you're going to do. Maybe you have a new garden because you just moved here from Texas, right? You're thinking, what do I want to do? You want to think about a garden, and you may all know this, that you want to think about what's going to bloom early, what's going to bloom late spring, what's going to bloom midsummer, and those asters are so important, and that goldenrod is so important toward the end of summer and fall. You look at any goldenrod, whether it's the kind of thug, that Canada goldenrod, they're covered in bumblebees. It was raining, that big rainstorm, not yesterday, whenever the last one was, and my bumblebees are sleeping under the goldenrod flower. They're like all underneath, like it's a little umbrella for them. So if you think about the seasons, and then, as I said, let your flowers go to seed. You don't need to cut those down until spring. Get used to that beautiful look of winter weeds. It's actually a winter weed flower arranging. There's a course. Do it. Winter weeds are beautiful. And you want to think about native. And when I say native, I don't mean Home Depot, I'm going to buy an echinacea. Because that Home Depot echinacea is probably treated with neonicotinoid pesticides, and it's probably from Oklahoma, and it's not what is a true native ecotype. So you want to think about where you're getting your plants. It's really important. There are some places, Prickly Ed's Cactus and Emporium is a good place. The Native Plant Trust in Massachusetts, Rhode Island Wild Plant Society has some sales. Get there early, people will be in line. And you want to think about what are the natives and what can I plant that belongs here, because all your insects have evolved with native species. Evolution takes place over a very long time. And so the native insects have evolved with the native plants for the benefit of both. So we have the beautiful, I won't know all my Latin names, black-eyed Susans up in the top. We have Joe Pyeweed down here in the left corner, gorgeous cardinal flower. Butterfly weed, which is a milkweed, and then, of course, sunflowers, if you can get them planted before the squirrels eat them. I have this dream that I want to have a sunflower house. I once saw this, like, in a children's garden, this house of sunflowers that they kind of grew together, and, yeah, the squirrels ruining my dream. So at our garden, in the Parmelee pollinator garden in Bristol, we have a lot of agastache or anise hyssop. The bees just, I don't know, it's like candy. The first couple of years, we have to kind of we're replanting it. It seems to have a really good lifespan for 3 years, and then you got to put in new plants. And then, of course, echinacea or purple coneflower, and the common and swamp milkweeds. These are big members of our garden. I'm sure you all know the milkweeds are great for the monarch butterfly, but also for the milkweed beetle and milkweed bug, all of which have that orange-black coloration to warn birds that they don't taste very good. Okay, if you love ruby-throated hummingbirds, as some of us do, these little guys right now, they're flying over the Gulf of Mexico to spend the winter in Central and South America. And then come spring, they're going to fatten up, and then they're going to catch a good wind, and they're going to fly all the way over the Gulf of Mexico again to work their way back to us. The male on the left with his beautiful gorget of ruby, the female on the right, who does all the work of nest building and baby raising. And then that's the little nest that she creates covered in lichen for camouflage. Now, you plant for the hummers and the other pollinators will come. So you could have feeders, just 1 part sugar to 4 part water, keep them clean, you don't need the red dye. Or you could plant some of the beautiful red and orange plants that they love, like bee balm, cardinal flower, jewelweed, jewelweed is, you might call it a weed, but it's really a beautiful orange plant. Red columbine, butterfly milkweed, and others, trumpet creeper. There's others that are just attract these little birds. And these are, people ask me, like, they seem so fragile. These are tough birds. These are very tough birds. I had read once that they were the emblem of the Inca warrior because they're so tough in terms of they chase each other and they battle around the feeders. And such. But also, if you think about that distance of migration, that they're getting to the edge of the Gulf of Mexico and then they're flying all the way across in one go. I know I can't fly. And you also want to make sure you have your native shrubs. Take out your privet and put in some of the beautiful viburnums, shadbush, blueberries. I know and the deer. I know you have to kind of protect them till they get big. But these shrubberies provide a lot of shelter and a lot of food. And then your trees, your holly, your eastern cedar. These are such good shelter, providing lots and lots of food. And then flowering trees. We all love flowering trees, but so do the birds. So my favorite cedar waxwing, that's a cedar waxwing over there on the left. And I was in Mississippi, in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is the birthplace of Elvis. And we went to his homestead early in the morning. It was just a cottage, really. And all these cherry trees were blooming. And the cherry trees were covered in cedar waxwings. And they were all eating the flowers because they like the nectar in the flower. And it was so beautiful, and it was such a nice tribute to Elvis. It was beautiful. And then, of course, the orioles will do the same thing. You'll see orioles on cherry and other flowering trees just eating the flower, just for that little bit of sugar. So native flowering trees make everybody happy. Don't forget your bugs in the ground. Don't forget your soil. Don't forget leaving a rotten log to break down naturally. A lot of, bumblebees nest underground, right? The queen has her eggs underground all winter. Spiders and woolly bears and roly-polies and worms and all these things that live underground live under the leaves. And I know everybody wants to rake their yard in the fall. I've gotten over that. I now have a yard that does not look like a poster child of New England yard. But I have lots and lots of ground organisms living there, breaking things down. These are your decomposers. They're in there eating the leaves and turning the leaves into soil and making good soil to grow your plants. And anyway, it's super important to think about your soil and your ground cover and your rotting logs and all those things that can really benefit the birds. Oh, these are just there's lots of good lists. If you're not sure what to buy for this area, if you're new and you want to find what's best for this area, Rhode Island Natural History Survey, Rhode Island Wild Plant Society, National Audubon has a good, you can zoom in on your area and find out what to plant. Xerces Society, Xerces is the Latin name of monarchs or butterflies or something. And you just really want to make sure you know where those plants are coming from, because the amount of neonicotinoids, pesticides in our environment is terrible, and it's what they spray on the lawns, and it just runs into the water, and it's poisonous for everybody. Now, if you don't want to feed the birds, you don't have to. And you don't have to know the names of them, you can just enjoy them. But if you want to do one thing for the birds, especially in winter, is to provide water in some form. It can be something simple, like I like the soda bottle idea. You just want to keep it clean. It has to be kind of shallow. This one where the house finches are, that's a pretty deep bowl of water. And I don't even think my raven Zach would get in that, because it's hard to, once you're in there, how do you get out, right? So you want to think shallow. I like this. The robins love to take baths. Outdoor pools are great, especially if they have some rocks in them so the birds can get them. I love, someday I'm going to have this hummingbird mister. That would just be amazing. If you do nothing else, if you keep some water available, nice clean water, everybody will come. Your squirrels will thank you. Everybody will say thank you. And then shelter. Some people like to build bird boxes, and there's a great website called nestbox.org with all the sizes and where to put it and how high, and the hole size is very important. But you know, planting those evergreen native trees, or leaving one dead tree that isn't dangerous to your yard is, you know, you never know. You might get a screech owl in it. And so you can think about that when you're designing your yard, is where are things going to go to hide? If you think about it, you know, if you leave your yard open, you put a bird feeder in the middle, your Cooper's hawk is just going to have a fabulous time. If you have somewhere, whether it's a brush pile or it's an evergreen or it's somewhere where the birds can scatter to and be sheltered, they have a better chance against predators. And, you know, there's more predators than the natural ones. If you are feeding your birds, you want to keep them clean, you want to buy high-quality seed, you want to provide suet, and you really want to keep your cats inside. Cats kill 1 billion birds a year, and I love my cats. But if they were let out, they would eat birds. Because I know this, because every time a mouse gets in the house, it's like a field day. It's usually a field night, because it's usually in the night. So please keep your cats inside. And then window strikes, that's another biggie. A few other things. You know, we're losing habitat, but you can create habitat in your backyard. It does not have to be huge. You can create habitat right in your own backyard for birds. Window strikes, if you have big, huge windows, there are now there's like things you can put over the window that are not unattractive and really can help prevent that reflection. They get confused. They think the sky is the reflection. And then Audubon is working very hard on rodenticides. Rodenticides are poisons that are put in traps to kill rats and mice. The problem is the mice and rats don't die. They get out, and then the hawks and owls and coyote and fox and cats and dogs get into the mouse, and then the poison goes into the food chain. So it's, you know, we have a lot of poisons in our environment. Think about that next time you buy a plant or such. So we can all do something. It's not like one of those things where I can't do anything. I can do something. Even it's planting pots with native plants. You can do that. Or it's providing water. That's all you have to do. And you can empower your grandchildren and your children to do the same thing. My parents didn't bird until I started looking at birds, and then I bought them a bird feeder, and then I bought them bird seed, and I bought them a bird book. Yeah. They got a great backyard. So, and that's it. So, thank you.